So today we're going to be taking a look at a scenario where humanity is wiped out, civilization is reset. So basically, the borders of the world will be disappearing, and all of these countries, which are here now, will disappear. So a new group of humans will pop up. This will be a brand new group, and it's going to kind of happen like how history in real life happened, with human tribes happening over here, the first civilization in Mesopotamia, and then eventually they spread out, go to Europe, go to Asia, deeper into Africa, and then we, of course, jump a few hundred years and we get the world map. So basically what we're doing is we're recreating the world map, but in our own timeline. So if you guys do enjoy this video, make sure to leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you're new. All the support is greatly appreciated. You can support by liking, subscribing, commenting, sharing, all that good stuff. But let's go ahead and jump straight into this scenario. All right, so here we have our blank world map with no civilizations on it, no humans, no countries, no borders, nothing like that. So we're gonna be having a new group showing up, and they're gonna be starting out where the original group started out, in Mesopotamia. You know what I mean. And of course, there's humans, but like tribes. I'm talking about an actual civilization. And these guys, like I said, started out in Mesopotamia, and they really just kind of focus in on the fertile areas of Iraq, or I guess where Iraq would be. But it isn't long until they see the sea through, I guess, trade routes and just exploring, and they finally meet up with the Persian Gulf. At this point, the civilization is considered a nation with a capital. It almost meets all the criteria for one, but since it's really the only one, it counts. And from here, it kind of prospers for a few years. I mean, the idea of war and rebellion isn't really necessary. It's not a democracy, but the rule of the ruler is fair. And eventually, the civilization meets up with the Caspian Sea. More years start to go by as it meets up with the Mediterranean Sea, and boat technology is achieved, and now they're able to traverse the waters, although not very far. So they're able to conquer Cyprus, and they start a colony over here in what would be the UAE. But now we finally get to a part where this civilization is struggling. We have a ruler who is in what I guess would be Baghdad, wanting to expand itself up north. They want to go up into Europe. There's tales and myths that there is a lot of good land and resources up here, so he wants to go that way. But there is another person who is very politically powerful and very politically popular who wants to go the eastern way. There's tales of just a lot of resources over this way, lots of different, I want to say biomes, but I'm just thinking Minecraft right now. I don't know why. Lots of different climates, terrains. So what do they do about it? Well, they're going to split off into two different entities. We have the red team and the blue team, or I guess East West Mesopotamia and West Mesopotamia. And interestingly enough, the red team does hold on to the UAE, but now with these two separated, they aren't really friendly with each other, but there still is trade going back and forth, since these are the only two civilizations. But the blue team, as it wanted to do, is now heading east, following mainly the Persian Gulf coast. The red team does as it wants to and goes towards Europe, going into modern day Turkey. But now at this point, a group of settlers from the red team is going to go ahead and manage their way into Africa and start their own civilization in northern Egypt. I do want to say real quick, if you guys do want to make this into a series, obviously I'm not going to be able to do the whole world map in this video because that would take too long. But if you do want to see this made into like a series, make sure to show support in this video. Like, subscribe, comment, all that stuff. This is an interesting idea that I kind of just thought of, and we could do a lot with this. It's basically like our own alternate history, but starting all the way back. But yeah, just putting the idea out there. If you guys do want to see this, let me know. So a new civilization is formed up. This has really no relation with the red team other than the fact that the humans that are making this are from the red team, and something similar does happen with the blue team as well. We have a group of civilization people, humans, going up north in the Caspian Sea and settling the area around it in Kazakhstan. So as we can see, humanity is starting to spread out a little bit. We have, of course, the main two empires doing their thing, but there's also some other civilizations around the world at this point. Fast forwarding a few years, we can see that the red team has successfully made it over to Europe, taking over the Thrace area, but they've also almost conquered all of Turkey. As for the blue team, they have an interesting strategy of just sticking to the coast, but they have made it over to the western coast of India, and they have thickened out their area a little bit in Iran. The yellow team is focusing itself around the Caspian Sea, and this nation is known as Caspia, original name I know, but they're not really hurting anybody. It's at this point though that we see the red team start to focus in on the Arabian continent, going down south into what would be Jordan and Saudi Arabia. But it's at this point that we have our first conflict breakout between two different nations, and the blue team really wasn't a fan of the red team going down south because they were kind of doing the same thing, and they kind of have overlapping borders here. And let's just say the blue team takes a little bit of land and the red team is not having that. So red team troops take back the land that the blue team stole and then a little bit more. And now we have our first war of the new civilization between the red and blue team. The blue team has a pretty good offensive over here against the red team. However, the red team will go ahead and kind of one up them and push them all the way over to the Persian Gulf. The blue team will take over the colony over here in the UAE, while also trying to push back over here towards the capital of the red area. The red area is not having any of that though, as they blitz all the way through down into Qatar and take over this land. A pretty sweeping defeat. The blue team does try its best to kind of stop the red team from doing this, but unfortunately for them, the red team is just too powerful at this point. And really, some of the people living within the blue country are kind of in support of the red country anyway. The split that happened wasn't really like favored by a lot of people. You know, there was that guy who, like I said, was very politically powerful and had a lot of influence. But his rule was not as popular as the original rule, which is by the red team. So really, we kind of see some rebellions take place, especially along the coastal areas where a lot of the people are living. And for the blue team, they are squished all the way back until eventually the two sides agree to stop fighting. And these are the new borders between the red and blue teams. With this occurring, the red team is able to basically sweep through Arabia, taking over a majority of the coastal areas and not really touching too much on like the big desert right here. The red team also currently occupies a few coastal cities. Should probably make that a little bit more obvious. So we'll do like that and that. And really the blue team is extremely weak now. So what they're going to do is they're going to go ahead and move further into India. Now, of course, some terrain issues could occur in this area specifically, but they're not really worried about that, as they're more worried about taking over all of India because it's a very good place to live. There's a lot of land, a lot of terrain, which is the same thing as land, water, and soil. So the blue team takes over all of India. Meanwhile, the red team will keep doing red team things as they now go into the Caucasian region and finally meet up with the yellow civilization, in which they are friendly with. Speaking of that yellow civilization, they are going to go ahead and wrap themselves completely around the Caspian Sea, or the unclaimed areas of it. And it is here that they finally start to move over towards the Black Sea, meeting up with that sea. And here we have a compromise between the yellow and red teams, as the red team is claiming the rest of the Caucasian region. All right, so as we can see, the age of civilizations, wink wink, is popping off. There's 4 ones right now. There's 2 big ones, one superpower if you want to call it that. But yeah, over the next few years, it's really just all about expansion. The purple team focuses in on the coastal areas of Africa, taking over areas like Egypt, Libya, and Sudan, where now the red team moves into Greece, a very good area for living. And they also focus in on the Black Sea coast, taking over Crimea. A few more years later, and we have a new civilization popping up, this time over here in Tunisia. This one is formed by a mixture of people from the red team and the pink team, and what their main goal here is to, well, make a civilization. I don't know where I was going with that, but they do claim this big area up here and focus mainly on the northern Algerian coast. They also cross over into Istanbul and start taking over parts of southern Spain. And now we have yet another civilization forming, this time in the southern area of Arabia. And these are people who are not in the support of the red team or the blue team. They're kind of like a neutral faction. They don't want to be ruled by the red team, but they don't want to be ruled by the blue team. And while the red team is more focused on Europe, they will take advantage of that and claim most of the areas which were once unclaimed by the red team. Eventually, though, they do take notice and claim the rest of it. And now Arabia is completely full. They're also going to do an expedition across the sea in order to colonize areas like Somaliland and Djibouti. And they'll also take over these islands right here. The pink/purple team will also move down south and eventually meet up with the green team, in which they sign I don't want to say an alliance, but they sign a cooperation pact with them. Time to check in on the blue team. That's not good. So the northern area of the blue team rebels, and this is more like a traditional blue team area. These 2 areas in the blue team are very different from each other. And honestly, the original blue team, which once again, it started all the way over here in Iran and has been pushed to India, is kind of okay with this. You know, they're happy in India. They have everything they need here. And this is kind of like the part where it's just like, we want to stay over here near where we started. So that's the difference there. With a lot less land to worry about, the blue team will go on to colonize Sri Lanka and will now move to take more areas over here where Bangladesh and Myanmar are. So this is our world map as of now, and as we can see, humanity and, well, civilization as a whole has spread out greatly. The red team is the sole superpower in the world. However, countries like the blue team over here in India and maybe the pink team are becoming fairly strong. That pink team, once again, is going to go ahead and do its best to, take more land. I'm sure they don't really want to go after the desert right here because there's not much they can do with it. But what they can do is follow the Nile River for the most part. I think it's something like that. The red team will now go ahead and carry out a policy known as mass expansionism, as they send hundreds upon hundreds of thousands, maybe, of people up into the Balkan area of Europe, claiming this land for their own. And this is going to have a pretty negative effect on the country because not a lot of people are in support of this. Basically what they're doing is they're taking people who are living here and forcing them to go live here. That definitely doesn't sit well with the populace, as we know. No one likes to be forced to do anything. So yeah, it creates a little bit of despair within the red team. But now back on over here to the orange team, they will continue to colonize, this time taking over parts of, or I guess a lot of Spain and a little bit of Portugal. They eventually make a landing in Sicily and Corsica, as well as Sicily. Did I say Sicily? I meant to say Sardinia. And the red team sees this, and the red team doesn't like this, so they start to colonize Italy, taking over the rest of the boot. So you can kind of see some similarities between this civilization and any real life civilizations. We have India, we have the Ottoman Empire, we have what looks to be a little bit of the Islamic Empire, we have Egypt. But remember those angry people I was talking about? Yeah, they want to move out. So without permission from the red team's leader, a bunch of people, like 40% of them who were forced to live here, start to move away and up north. Now this is where humanity is experiencing its coldest conditions. Before that, it was probably over here in the northern Caspian area or over here in the northern Balkans. But now they're going up to where like the Baltics are, in Kaliningrad and Poland. That's very cold. And with this, they start a new civilization focused in on the Baltic area, coastal place. I don't know what I was getting at. But the red team is really not a fan of this, and they're going to send some pretty hostile things over towards the pink team. Pink team doesn't care though, because they're doing their own thing now, and we don't have to listen to the red team anymore. The yellow team hasn't moved in a bit, and I think it's about time that they do. So they take over the rest of the area around the Azov Sea, and start to move more into the central steppes of Central Asia. We see them send a pretty long voyage out towards the center of the continent, basically just seeing when they would meet the ocean. After a few months of searching, I think they are getting close to the Gobi Desert, and they finally reach it, and they hit it, and they stop exploring. This blue team right here seeks to move a little bit up north. They have some terrain difficulties though, so they don't go very far. And the green team seeks to take over more coastal areas from Somalia. Now we have yet another civilization popping up, this time from the orange team, over here in the Benelux area. They were given permission to start their own civilization up here on the condition that they keep friendly relations with the orange team and are good trade partners, and you know they agreed to that. So we have the founding of the Benelux country. Red team's not a fan of this. The red team is basically like the Germany of this timeline. They don't like people expanding, or maybe it's more like the Soviet Union, but they don't like people doing things because they're the boss and you can't do that. And the yellow team, you know, we're friends, so we're not going to fight each other, but we could fight everyone else if we really wanted to. Not really though. The country with the most technology is probably India right now, followed by the red team, and then probably followed by the pink team. In terms of military might though, that goes to the red team by far. In terms of population, also the red team, probably followed by the purple team. But yeah, anyway, so now we basically have a little conquest between the orange and green team as they push around southern Europe and eventually meet up with each other in southern France. Eventually, Iberia is completely captured by the orange team, and most of France is captured by the green team. These guys start to move over into what is currently Germany and up into the Danish peninsula. The pink team up north here seeks to expand their coast area into the Danish peninsula until they eventually meet up with the green team, in which they are friendly with. They also start to conquer some of these islands and even make a landing over here in Sweden, basically discovering that part of Europe. As for the orange team, since they are pretty much cut off from Europe, they do take a little bit of Italy, but from here, what they want to do is they take a little bit of coast from France, but what they mainly focus in on is taking over coastal areas of Africa, more specifically in Morocco and eventually into the Western Sahara. They also make landings in these islands here, although with a lot of death because these islands are pretty far away. Probably the furthest away they've gone in rough sea conditions, but who knows, there might be a whole ass another continent out there, maybe two. Looking at what would be a modern world map in this timeline, this is all that the world really knows exists. They know that a little bit of England exists, but they haven't really explored it. They know that there's still unclaimed land in France. They know there's still a bunch of unclaimed land in the middle of Europe. What in the world? They don't really know what's south of Africa. You know, there's some unclaimed land here, but who knows what's going on down here in this weird abyss. India has gone out and sent scouts over here, so they know about Vietnam and Thailand, They don't really know what's going on here though. They don't know what's going on here. Like I said, the yellow team had this weird little spear going out. They basically know around that, but that's about it. And you can kind of see how the exploration of the world is coming about. Here's just like an outline of what they know of, so I guess that's kind of easier to look at. But yeah, time for some war. The red team, like I said, they moved people over to the Balkans and they were not having that. So what they're going to do is they're basically going to split away into their own thing. So we have the formation of the brown-red team. These guys have a control over a majority of the red team's European colonies. They don't have control over India, or not India, Italy, since that's a fairly new colony. But these guys are being backed by the pink and green teams as well as the orange team, because the orange team, well, they don't like the red team. The red team has the support of the yellow and pink teams, and everyone else is neutral. So the brown team does a pretty good job at conquering over these lands in Europe, and that's because the red team was mostly unprepared for this. What they most likely were doing at this point was, scouting out this area of Europe, meaning that their military is like in this area, so they will go ahead and start claiming this area in order to get behind the brown team, in which case they'll start to push in from behind. But the brown team does have the advantage over here, although the red team's defensive forces do a good job at holding off and even pushing back. At this point, the pink team is going to go ahead and open up a supply route down to the brown team in order to help them out in any way possible. This technically deems that this land has been explored, and even another supply route from the Danish area is spun out down toward the brown team. If you can't tell, the brown team's capital is like right here, and the pink team's capital probably in Kaliningrad. But like I said, the green team is helping them out, so it's likely that the green team would be sending things into the pink team, and from there they'd be processed and then sent down in towards the brown team. But yeah, this war is pretty ugly. The red team, it looks not good. It does not look like the strongest military power in the world, and it kind of has trouble. The brown team's using a lot of guerrilla warfare tactics, and I guess you can call the red team the modern USA of this timeline, but they definitely struggle, and they even start to lose land in Europe. They do have a lot of success over here on the coastal areas, taking over a lot of these coastal cities and ports and stuff, but at the end of the day they do fail to advance into the core areas of the brown team, as they are pretty much forced all the way back to what would be Istanbul or Constantinople, I don't know. They are pushed back a little bit over here in Croatia, but they do have one last hurrah in order to try to attempt to take back as much land as possible. They push deep into brown team territory in southern Europe. This causes a loss of a lot of casualties, but they do gain back a lot of land. At this point, it's basically just a back and forth war, and the red team and brown team have made it publicly known that they are seeking out a peace deal, and the yellow team really isn't having none of that. So they jump on this opportunity. I really don't know how to speak today. And what they do is that they start claiming land in Crimea and southern Ukraine. And with the brown team exiting this war pretty soon, they really don't do anything about it. And instead, they invite the yellow team to the peace conference, in which they agree to cede over that land to the yellow team. So in that peace conference, this is basically what happens. And these are the final borders. Yeah, back then, or I guess hundreds of years ago, peace deals are basically you just take what you get. The yellow team does offer up a southern port in Crimea over to the red team, but other than that, they will claim the rest of this area, and the red team is fine with that. I mean, they helped out a little bit. But yeah, the red team has definitely lost its influence over here in the southern Balkans, which will lead to it kind of losing its grip on strength. They really can't expand anywhere else. Losing this war was pretty embarrassing. They're not going to go to war with their ally. They're not going to go to war with their other ally. They could conquer the green team, but they really don't have a reason to, because this land isn't too valuable. They could go after the blue team if they really wanted to. But that just puts you on a border with India, and you probably don't want that. So at this point, the red team is essentially neutralized. But the pink team is becoming kind of its own player. It uses ideals from the red team, since, it branched off from the red team. And with those ideals, it's able to easily conquer this land between it and the brown team, and even start to rapidly expand into what is going to be probably the second strongest country in the world. Maybe third or fourth behind the pink and blue team, or maybe fifth behind the orange team, but they're definitely becoming strong. And it's at this point that they're going to go ahead and unite with the brown team, which is absolutely a killer for the Red Alliance. With that, they're able to easily fill in these areas in Europe and even take a large portion out of Central Europe, which will lead to kind of a mass organization between the red, orange, and green team in order to take this land before the pink team gets it. So the red team is able to get about this much land, the orange team about this much, and the green team will get the rest of it, as well as the rest of France. So as we can see very quickly, the pink team has become a very powerful country. Now it is definitely ranked at either number 1 or number 2. And yeah, the red team is really feeling this. I mean, they don't like the fact that this has occurred, and they're going to take it out on the cyan team over here. So they start their invasion, and it goes extremely well. The cyan team never really industrialized as the rest of them have, and I don't want to say industrialized because this is like, you know, this is still wars being fought like spears and shields and stuff. So they really haven't caught up to that technology. I don't want to say they're fighting with sticks and stones, but the red team starts brushing in to the cyan team, and it isn't long until the blue team takes action, claiming the rest of the cyan team and invading it, while also expanding their territory up north toward the Himalayan mountain range. So at this point, the red team and blue team are once again united by a border, but the tensions aren't as high as they once were. It is important to remember though that the red team is technically the father of the blue team in some weird way, and the red team is also the father of the pink team in some weird way, as well as the orange team halfly, well actually fully, because these guys are from there. So yeah, the red team has kind of contributed to a lot of these colonies. I think the blue team technically, I don't remember what I said, but I think they are in charge of that. And then as we know, this came from the red team as well. This kind of came from the orange team. So you can kind of see the tree of how these nations became to be. But yeah, I am going to actually stop it here. So I hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you want to see this concept expanded into like a full-on series, do let me know in the comments, because this was pretty fun. Just kind of, you know, you can kind of do whatever you want with this. You don't really have to worry about history, because history never existed. The only thing you have to worry about is geography. The rest is up to you, aka me. So yeah, if you do want to see this formed into an alternate history series, like I said, let me know. I'm 100% down for it. Let's try to get this video to 5,000 likes. Is that a lot? I think it's a lot. Let's try to get to 3,500 likes. If we do that, I'll make it into a series, and if enough people say in the comments, we'll do it. But yeah, speaking of the alternate future series, stop asking about it. It's coming back, okay? I'm going on vacation soon, so I'm not gonna be able to do it in the next 2 weeks, but once I get back, you know, I'll have a few weeks of school left, and then Christmas vacation. I'm sure I'll have enough time and motivation to do it then. So I hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you did, make sure to leave a like on it, subscribe to the channel if you're new. Actually, by the time you're seeing this, I'm halfway through my vacation. I'm probably like in Hispaniola right now, so that's cool. Yep, over here. Yep. But yeah, sure supporting this video. I appreciate it. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. And of course, thank you to all the super fans, which include Matthew Newman, Yam, Kylie Speaks Plays, Shadow Gamer Z, Deva Edits, Mr. Bonk 7, Hammer Toad 45, Patrick Clauser, Connor the Gamer, Texan Cowboy Cheese, Poland Country Ball, Yakko, Nevada Garbage Trucks, DW Cool Dude, Soviet Ball, and Serminator. Once again, thank you guys.